A targeted attack at Cabramatta.
Teacher at Cabramatta High School sentenced today for deliberately driving his car into the path of students. The magistrate
In recent years, Walsall's thriving CBD in Sydney has seen a considerable stagnation in terms of development and renovation. The few available spaces are occupied by major businesses and companies, while the remaining areas consist of living complexes for convenient access to workplaces. Competition is exceptionally fierce, and it is practically impossible to compete with already established enterprises within the CBD. As a result, communities and businesses are in dire need of more affordable and accessible locations, where loyal customers are within greater reach. Our proposal for Cabramatta is to adopt a similar approach and implement the necessary preparations for development in the next CBD. This would essentially require an improvement within all areas of social, cultural, economic, and environmental sustainability, which will in effect considerably add value to the sustainability of Sydney as a whole. However, in order to sustainably improve the quality of the suburb, we require a greater understanding of our citizens. According to the 2021 census, we have 21,142 residents living in our suburb, of which approximately 49.3% of individuals in Cabramatta are male and 50.7% are female, as seen in this graph. The home demographics demonstrates that on average, there is 0.9 children per family and 1.7 for families with children. In a private dwelling, there is an average of 3 individuals per household. The median weekly household income is $1,184. The median monthly mortgage payments are $1,500. The median rent amount of Cabramatta is $330, and each household has on average 1.5 motor vehicles, as seen in this table. The age demographics show that most individuals within Cabramatta are in the 20 to 29 year range and the 50 to 64 year ranges. Most of our citizens were born in Vietnam at 37.6%, while 28.6% were born in Australia, 8 in Cambodia, and 4 in China, as seen in this graph.
Taking inspiration from the 2040 documentary, a decentralized market generating solar power will be extremely integral in achieving sustainability. Under this system, solar power can be bought and sold between households, with energy being the form of currency. Although such a market would be disconnected from the overall power grid in New South Wales, each household and building would ideally be connected to support each other through solar power. This will be crucial to sustainability, particularly when it is either difficult to obtain solar power from weather conditions or in times of crisis when more energy is needed. The numbers behind solar energy are impressive. On average, solar panels produce about 2 kilowatt hours of electricity daily, with most homes producing an average of 30 kilowatt hours of solar energy with 15 solar panels. With the typical home consuming 900 kilowatt hours of electricity per month, these solar panels can comfortably cover this level of consumption. However, for this vision to become a reality, at least 90% of the 7,463 private dwellings in Cabramatta should install solar panels. The government currently facilitates the small-scale renewable energy scheme, where each kilowatt hour of power generated can cover a percentage of the solar installation cost. We also proposed to subsidize the upfront cost of purchase and installation by 50%, decreasing the average cost of solar panels by $2,898. We hope that this initiative will have a meaningful impact on reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, and that Sydney may soon follow suit for energy production to benefit overall sustainability efforts.
In the present, Cabramatta is moderately linked to Sydney to the T2, T3 and T5 train lines and several bus lines, the 815, 816, 817, 904 and the M70. However, it is essentially cut off from the T4 and T8 lines, which are relied upon by a significant number of commuters, as seen in this table. Another issue is that Sydney stations and tunnels are filled with particulate matter, reaching magnitudes up to 5 times greater than the WHO's recommended limit. This is a result of fumes from diesel engines, restricted airflow, and the deterioration of train components. In addition, frequent repairs and delays are constantly experienced due to the aging nature of infrastructure, resulting in major disruptions. Finally, Cabramatta is extremely crowded from this rail corridor, which could be instead used for green spaces or other necessary facilities. Thus, to support our workforce of over 7,000 citizens, we hope to offer an efficient but sustainable transport system. First, we will relocate the T2 and T5 train lines underground, which is expected to take 3 years. The resulting area above will be known as the Green Corridor, being sustainably repurposed for parks, walkways, and other public facilities. Furthermore, all trains running through Cabramatta would be from the Waratah train fleets, which are entirely electric. In the meantime, while the train lines are under maintenance, we will convert all Cabramatta diesel buses to electric, which will be completed within a year. Electric buses typically last for 7.5 hours on full charge, meaning it can comfortably operate throughout the day. Services will also be more frequent and subsidized to make transport free for everyone. In the long term, however, we propose that we develop a Sky Monorail, offering a sustainable and driverless form of transport. Modeled from Bangkok's monorail, it will significantly decrease the amount of space and material required and thus reduce upkeep costs. The first part of the monorail follows the M5 and the A28 to Revesby and shortens the alarming 53 minutes by current public transport to 18 minutes. The second part runs to Sutherland to the A6, cutting a 50-minute journey down to 20 minutes. We hope that by implementing these initiatives, our transport system will become more efficient and reduce commuters' reliance on private transport. We also hope that we will be used as a catalyst for change across the Sydney transport system, overall reducing greenhouse gases and increasing the sustainability of Sydney.
Cabramatta has a significant variety of restaurants, cafes, and food stores, which mainly obtain their produce from outside farms and markets. If we plan on making our food choices more sustainable and reduce our reliance from external sources, we will have to implement some changes. We will first have to rule out urban farming, which involves rooftop gardens, as 50.91% of the homes in Cabramatta are 2 stories, meaning they do not have a flat roof for farming. Even if these roofs are flat, most are constructed from steel sheets, which cannot support the weight of urban gardens. But although this method is not feasible, another potential sustainable solution would be to promote backyard gardens instead. This is definitely achievable and would certainly be easier for our residents to modify their backyard as opposed to their rooftops. Through this initiative, we will deliver planters, soil, seeds, and fertilizer to encourage households to start their own garden. Additionally, we hope to introduce the husbandry of chickens for residents with further yard space. Chickens produce eggs daily, providing a viable source of nutrition and income. Chicken manure also serves as nitrogen-rich fertilizer for our residents' gardens. Just like the backyard gardens, we will subsidize and deliver the chickens, coops, and a year's worth of feed. We expect 80% of homes to participate, which will be sufficient to sustainably source chicken eggs, vegetables such as carrots, lettuce, and tomatoes, fruits such as apricots, lemon, and raspberries, and herbs such as parsley, mint, and basil. This locally produced food will help reduce food bills, reduce our reliance on external farms, and maintain a steady supply of food. Thus, we can reduce our reliance on markets and farms, maintain a stable supply of food, and reduce food costs for residents in an environmentally and economically sustainable way. We hope that these initiatives will not only boost the carbon sink capabilities of our suburb and our sustainability, but also the sustainability of Sydney as a whole.
While the recycling rate in New South Wales has improved overall, with 64% of national waste being diverted to recycling in the years of 2019 to 2020, Cabramatta still has many opportunities to improve waste management. For example, one unit block has resulted in the neighbourhood being named the Cabramatta Dump, where rat-plagued rubbish has continued to pile. Our ambitious goal for Cabramatta is to ultimately achieve zero waste, which will not only increase sustainability but significantly improve the livability of our suburb. In order to achieve this, we will first propose to extend the single-use plastic ban beyond the framework outlined in the Plastics and Circular Economy Act of 2021. This will ban plastic utensils, trays, and packaging, and we hope that the rest of the state will follow these actions. Due to this, we will provide alternative bamboo products to replace the newly banned plastics, free of charge to businesses and individuals. We can achieve this by sourcing bamboo products from sustainable bamboo businesses across New South Wales. We aim to establish partnerships with these businesses in order to meet the demand for our suburb, which will greatly support the New South Wales economy. Then, to address existing waste still in the community, economic incentives are necessary to increase recycling. These incentives, known as pay-as-you-throw schemes, typically provide vouchers or payments for individuals and communities and have successfully been implemented in other countries such as Hong Kong. In 2020, the government introduced green coins, which can only be obtained by exchanging recyclables, each with a different value in the system. For example, a kilogram of plastic bottles is worth 80 green coins. These coins can be used to purchase groceries such as milk for 250 coins. Such a system in Cabramatta could work in conjunction with the Return and Earn scheme, of which 3 stations are currently established within our suburb. With more difficult waste, it may be possible to reuse the material for local infrastructure. The Cabramatta Loop project, which recently renovated various roads and rail lines, has reused over 500 cubic meters of materials from decommissioned infrastructure, such as concrete and asphalt. We will continue to support and subsidize these efforts, such as the Cabramatta Loop project. Note that these efforts will not only increase the sustainability of our suburb, but also extend to the rest of Sydney as recycling initiatives and stricter plastic bans are implemented.
Pollution is a major contributor to climate change, and thus is an obstacle we must overcome to be fully sustainable. Although pollution has been substantially decreased with our recycling initiatives, air pollution is still prevalent in our suburb. For example, 56.8% of our citizens travel to work by car. With 8% of cars in New South Wales being electric vehicles, this equates to nearly 3,000 petrol and diesel cars in Cabramatta. Therefore, we must either redirect these citizens towards using our low emissions public transport system or towards replacing their cars with electric vehicles. For the latter, we will subsidize the upfront cost of every electric vehicle purchased in Cabramatta by 30%, which could save up to $45,000. Residents with electric vehicles will also be offered with a charging station for free. At this stage, we will not install additional public charging stations as 90% of homes already have personal solar panels. Accompanying this, we will impose a strict carbon tax for businesses and households to further ensure that carbon emissions and air pollution is reduced. With a typical household producing 48 tons of carbon dioxide annually, a carbon tax of $50 per ton is reasonable, considering that both electric vehicles and solar panels are heavily subsidized. As more of our residents switch to electric vehicles, reducing air pollution from decreased carbon emissions, it will also reduce noise pollution as electric vehicles are far quieter than petrol and diesel cars. In addition, we plan on systematically planting trees across Cabramatta to absorb carbon dioxide. The city of Sydney is home to approximately 88,500 trees, which covers 20% of the local area. However, the council has committed to covering 23% by 2030. Using this target, we can calculate that Cabramatta roughly requires 20,000 trees to reduce pollution and become a greener suburb. We hope that this initiative will not only boost the sustainability of our suburb, but also inspire similar goals to be undertaken by other suburbs and ultimately Sydney.
While there is not a wide variety of wildlife within Cabramatta, their protection is still essential as we continue to develop our suburb. Bird species including lorikeets, kookaburras, and cockatoos are mainly found across Cabramatta Creek and various parks. They typically form their nests in either low-lying shrubbery or trees, of which we have already committed to planting 20,000. Our green corridor, created to the relocation of the train lines, will also be home to more wildlife areas and green spaces. Our waste initiatives through our recycling scheme and our ban of all single-use plastic will substantially reduce the risk of wildlife consuming harmful substances or contaminants found in waste products. Additionally, the accelerated uptake of electric vehicles will decrease noise pollution and thus create a more suitable environment for wildlife. But to further protect these ecosystems and biodiversity, we will pass stricter wildlife protection laws by increasing the penalties outlined in the Biodiversity Conservation Act of 2016. The Act states that any person who harms or attempts to harm a threatened species will receive imprisonment for 2 years and a fine of up to $2 million. However, we pledge to enforce a penalty of imprisonment for 4 years and a fine of up to $4 million. Finally, we'll undergo a complete overhaul of our outdoor light fixtures by positioning the light directly downwards. This will ensure that our nocturnal animals, like owls, are not blinded, while still maintaining light for our residents during the evening and night. With approximately 5 light fixtures for each street, this project is expected to be completed by 2026. We hope that by implementing these initiatives, not only will the biodiversity of our suburb increase, but also affect Sydney as a whole through waste initiatives and stricter amendments of wildlife protection laws.
Water is an essential resource that we must be able to sustainably source. In order to achieve this, we plan to scale the collection of rainwater to a much greater level. First, we will provide at least 95% of households with a rain tank and filtration system to supply water sustainably, for sanitation and gardening purposes. A 20,000 litre rain tank and subsequent filtration system would typically cost around $5,000, but we will cover half of this cost. With this, we hope to reduce Cabramatta's reliance on the New South Wales water system. However, just like solar power, rainwater is not a continual water source and thus should not be solely relied upon. Projects such as the Upper South Creek Advanced Water Recycling Station do already exist and run through Cabramatta, Cabramatta West, Fairfield and more. We want to help not only fund these projects, but eventually develop our own wastewater treatment plant on a smaller scale by 2029. Our plant will follow 2 stages of waste treatment, primary and secondary. During primary treatment, a mesh screen will block larger biosolids and material to collect in a grit chamber and sedimentation tank. From here, we hope to reuse these solids as fertilizer for our residents' gardens. Secondary treatment entails the removal of smaller biosolids through chemicals in an aeration tank. The sewage then breaks down into harmless byproducts, whereby chlorine is introduced and the water is safe to drink. A typical water treatment facility recycles and treats up to 3,000 megaliters of water per year. We hope for our wastewater plant to treat at least 1,500 megaliters per year. This will be more than ample to not only provide water to residents that do not yet have a water tank, but as a backup supply for the suburb if there is limited rainfall. We hope that this will be able to bolster not only our efforts to increase water sustainability and availability, but also the development of further treatment plants across Sydney as a whole.
Cabramatta, climate change has not yet had a major impact. However, we will still embark on establishing initiatives to better prepare for climate change. Firstly, we have taken aforementioned steps to establish a greater carbon sink to better minimize our impact on the environment. We have committed to transforming our train corridor into a green corridor, where we will plant native trees and shrubs in the repurposed parklands. These plants will both boost biodiversity within the corridor, but also regularly absorb greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide, as well as reduce their surrounding temperature. We have also promoted the growth of produce and plants in our residents' homes to further increase our carbon sink capabilities. Along with this, the maintenance and careful observation of the Cabramatta Creek and other natural areas is also one of the many steps we have taken to improve our sustainability and ability to minimize the impacts of climate change. In addition, we have increased our resilience towards the impact of climate change by providing subsidies for electric vehicles, solar panels, and rain tanks, which will heavily cut down on our reliance on fossil fuels to provide energy. Rain tanks reduce our need to use natural water resources and relieve stress on ecosystems and environments. This in turn increases their ability to absorb and recycle greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide. However, we understand that the impact of unpredictable weather events and extreme heat from a weakening ozone layer will only increase. Thus, as a suburb, we wish to paint as many rooftops white as possible. This will follow in the footsteps of New York City, which have already painted nearly 1 million square meters of rooftops in an effort to reduce the urban heat island effect. The urban heat island effect involves cities that experience higher temperatures from air pollution and an inability to dissipate heat due to artificial materials such as concrete. Researchers have found that lighter land surfaces could help to reduce and lower the extreme temperatures by up to 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, heavily reducing heat in our suburb. This in turn decreases the energy usage for air conditioning and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. We hope that these efforts will also influence the entirety of Sydney to implement subsidies and other initiatives, including the painting of rooftops to absorb heat.
Currently, the most common occupations in Cabramatta include labourers, comprising 19.2% of residents, machinery operators comprising 17%, and professionals comprising 13.6%. As a result, there are already vast opportunities to improve and expand into sustainable industries for Cabramatta. As our suburb becomes more sustainable, including through the development of sustainable industries, various employment opportunities will form. Where possible, we will commit to securing 95% of jobs in these industries solely for Cabramatta residents. Within our recycling industry, employment will be necessary for the operation and upkeep of our pay-as-you-throw schemes, which will be constructed throughout shopping centres and local malls. Local residents will also have the opportunity to install and maintain solar panels, water tanks, and charging stations for other fellow residents to support these sustainable industries. Again, we hope to learn from industry experts Supertank and Bushman for water management, and Sunboost and Ultimate Solar for solar panels and charging stations. Along with the installation and maintenance of these renewables, we will also require a small workforce to operate our small water treatment facility. Similarly, we will seek to employ a percentage of experts from nearby treatment facilities at Liverpool and Macquarie to assist our local residents in streamlining treatment processes and minimizing any risks of potential dangers that may arise. Finally, as temporary opportunities, we will offer employment to contribute to expanding our tree canopy to at least 20,000 trees, but also to paint rooftops in our suburb white, as mentioned before.
Cabramatta mainly consists of private residential housing and comprises approximately 75 to 80% of the local government area. We're limited in the urban design and aesthetic aspects that we can implement to have a meaningful impact. However, we will still promote new features in our public areas, which we hope will boost sustainability. As previously mentioned in our transport plan, a green corridor will transform the area left once the tree lines are moved underground. In this area, we will plant a large variety of native plants and shrubbery, through which we will hope to both revitalize the carbon sink and increase the biodiversity within the corridor. To help encourage our residents' transition into a more sustainable method of transportation, we also hope to build and develop extensive bike lanes within our green corridor, which will help reduce travel times across Cabramatta for our commuters. Along with the renovation and development of bike pathways, we will also endeavour to both maintain and develop more walking tracks to further promote the transition to more sustainable modes of transportation. In the distant future, we will aim to develop community buildings which are entirely self-sufficient, such as closed-system apartment blocks. These will include sustainable features which most houses in Cabramatta already have through our initiatives, including gardens, rainwater tanks, and solar panels. However, we will also like to implement a localized water treatment source per building and a centralized heating system. I hope that these suggestions for design aspects and features will improve the sustainability of Cabramatta and eventually a more sustainable environment for all of Sydney.